Welcome to another recorded live event supporting our most recent Living Resilience introductory course, Collateral Beauty. This course, designed to challenge and resource both newcomers and the very experienced in the Collapse-Aware and Collapse-Acceptant communities. Each recording in this series is from either the Saturday or Tuesday online Zoom gatherings intended to deepen an embodied and shared experience of this inner work of collapse in the course called Collateral Beauty. All right, welcome. It is Tuesday, April 9th, and this is the first Tuesday group practice session for our Living Resilience newest introductory course called Collateral Beauty. And this is specifically designed and hosted officially by Melissa Harmon, who is here, that other smiling face on the screen. Melissa, hi. And this is specifically intended to be able to, for people who are not able to be in the Saturday group practice sessions. So both these and the Saturday sessions are being recorded, and they'll be posted in the section that is that week. This is week 1, which means that we're talking about what's coming out ahead. You know, many of you might already be engaged with some of the videos or some of the reading or some of the practices, and that's fine. There's no problem for you to go in, dive in deep and fast and do what you do. But for many of us, we're going to be talking about elements that you haven't necessarily seen before. So either way, let's get on with it. So last Saturday, if you've seen that recording, you may recall that I put out a couple of requests, a couple of suggestions for if you're just so busy in your world that you don't have time to watch all the things that are racked up for a person to be able to watch in that first section of the Collateral Beauty course, that I requested that you'd watch one video from the overview at the very beginning, called The Stages of Awareness. And for Melissa, who has been here in this living resilience world for quite some time, Melissa, bless your heart, you've watched that, I don't know, probably more times than you can count. And so I really appreciate your willingness to revisit it from time to time, because I know you don't need to. You've got it down. And hopefully it's at least somewhat moving and significant to watch Etchem, the young woman from the Conference of Parties a few years ago, and her request of the adults in this world with whom she is exhausted, her request to let's all go upstream and find out why these bodies are floating down the river. Now, if you haven't seen this video yet, it won't make any sense, but it certainly will as soon as you watch it. And really the punchline after Etchem's speaking, the punchline of Paul Chafurka's Stages of Awareness is, as we go through the approximately 5 stages of awareness from his model, that we have different amounts of awareness of how systemically interwoven we are. So Again, it won't make any sense to you if you haven't seen it yet. If you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And these are particular elements that are pretty important for this work so that we all share a language. We share a language of uh, just what has gotten us into these predicaments, and then how we position ourselves with regard to level of awareness of what's actually going on, and then also where we can position ourselves with regard to really facing up to, and some might say fully accepting these predicaments that we're in. So, I want to say hi to Bob. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Welcome.
Hi, y'all.
Just getting off the ground here. Just kind of welcoming folks who might be watching the recording, as we did with the Saturday session, the first Saturday session just a few days ago. Really wanted to give people a sense of how this Tuesday gathering fits in the whole progression of this course. And just reviewing the two videos that I was suggesting on Saturday, that if a person is just too busy, those would be the two that they would want to do. And that's the stages of awareness from Paul Çafırka and the Turkish woman named Cem, and the Michael Dowd piece that he delivered early in 2023. And of course, Michael Dowd has died later that year, just last year, and he was sorely missed by this greater community. Just a remarkable loss for us all. And with great thanks, I include Michael Dowd's work quite often in the various courses that we do. So that that video from Michael Dowd is perhaps his most concise and clear layout of just how really predictable it is that we are in this state of collapse that we are in. And that of course, it's different amount of collapse or direct experience depending on where you are in the planet. But his point is very well backed up with a number of different resources and sources of material. But he makes the point of that we are in the middle of collapse, and we're headed that way, whether we like it or not. And he also starts to intimate a piece of this community that has evolved in these past couple of years through the work of Karen and Jordan. Help me remember their last name. Oh no, I'm sorry. It'll come to me when I'm not thinking about it so hard. But
Yeah.
bless their hearts, they they have really made a distinction of Harry, thank you very much. And you will find those videos, those first videos that both Karen and Jordan did with Michael Dowd primarily, in the additional sections of deep dive material later in the course. You'll find that after the 6 sections of the weekly course sections. So there's that. Those are the kind of the bare bones basics of what we suggested last Saturday, what we're suggesting about, now, if you don't have the time for the other videos, which are primarily poetry or sing-along songs, or really the beauty part of the Collateral Beauty name of this course. Tried to include some of that beauty in every one of the sections. There is one more suggestion that I have for folks who are watching this particular group practice session here on Tuesday or in later recording, I'd like to add one more suggestion for this week, and that is to take on at least once, if not daily, for the rest of the time of the course, this guided meditation that is included called Wider Embraces. Wider Embraces is not just a guided meditation. I think it's an extraordinary, gentle, and yet remarkably engaging uh, guided meditation that includes what I would say, what I usually call the energy body, our experience of being able to expand our presence out to a remarkable degree, like to the level of the planet, to the level of the solar system, and so on. So the reason why I'd like you to please consider seriously taking on each week's embodied practices, and to the ones that start to ring a bell for you in some way, I would strongly recommend try them on a daily basis. Certainly no harm done. And we don't mean to get in the way of any practices you might already be doing, but we've also been curating a set of um, practices that each one will engage quite unusual parts of us. These practices will tend to promote a non-ordinary awareness or a non-ordinary state of being. And there's really quite a pointed reason why we got those kind of practices together. And that is, I'm not going to remember it exactly, but I'll put it on the screen as in post-production here. And we've all heard the quotation from Albert Einstein that's attributed to Einstein. It says something along the lines of, we cannot solve the problems we encounter today with the same thinking we used to create them. And so we take that assertion, we take that quotation quite seriously around here. What I think is at the beating heart of what makes this work of living resilience and of the Collateral Beauty course, what makes us unique and what makes these offerings unique is that we're seriously embodying practices that have some kind of opportunity or chance of opening us up to new ways of thinking. And I'd like to add a little poetic license. I'd like to add new ways of relating, new ways of being that without an exposure to or an opening to these new ways of being and relating and thinking, there is no new possibility. And please know that if you find yourself on the spectrum of this stages of awareness where you are not necessarily fully at acceptance, you're just at an awareness level and you're engaged, you may still be holding out hope that we're going to find the answers and so on. I really am not encouraged that we're going to find any solutions to these predicaments. But what I really have designed this entire body of work for is that whether we're collapse acceptance or not, we can use this work to open up to new ways of thinking, being, and relating, no matter what the future holds for us. And if we don't open up to those new ways of thinking, relating, and being, then what we are promised, just by the default nature of life, is we're promised to carry those uh, business as usual ways of thinking, relating, and being that we were all born into and saturated in since birth. We have no choice but to be continually saturated in that way of being, thinking, and relating. So there's that final request, that request of uh, taking on those first two videos in the opening section and then section one in that first week's worth of material. And then the wider embraces guided meditation. And at each stage of this, each section, each week of this course, we hope you will bring along a journal with you. I have been a notoriously weak and inconsistent journaler until I wrote my book, The Impossible Conversation. And I learned just how important it is for my own process in these extraordinary times to be able to write down my thoughts when they're happening, because tomorrow I'll forget them. So a strong recommendation, bring along a journal, and with each element that you go through in this course, please give some time to journaling, and also some time to generate prompts that you might use if you have someone with whom you can have some conversation. I guess that loops me back to one of the first invitations you got in that very first video. And that is to find your people. If at all possible, this is a wonderful opportunity to invite close friends or relatives or associates who are kindred spirits of some kind in this journey, in this path, in this predicament, and to start having those conversations if you aren't already. So what I'd like to do is stop talking. I'm so honored and really pleased that Melissa and Bob, that you're joining us here for this weekly recording of the Tuesday group practice sessions. And you've kind of got a sense, both of you, what I've been reviewing and suggesting and underscoring. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to kind of check in with how has it been for you to be on this path? If you call it a path, that's what I call it. And I just appreciate it if you would speak a little bit about where you started, what got you, to kind of realize, wow, this is really happening. Kind of like in Paul Trafurka's, jump from one stage to another. Perhaps you could say what is it that really got your attention about our global situation, and a little bit about where you are now and how's it different? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And certainly no pressure. There's really no pressure in any part of this course. So if that's an uncomfortable way to check in, please check in the way that works for you. So either of you, would you be willing to check in and share with us?
Okay, I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Melissa Harmon, and from Alameda, California, and I just have a note here. I've sort of been keeping a journal, which is a bunch of paper with scrawled things on it, and going through the some of the videos. I did watch I meditated with the Wider Embraces video, which was really good. And then I was just, thinking of going into that meditation with a quote from somebody. remember who we are and how we got here. So it's great to start off with that because, for even both of you, I know you very well, but I'm not, I was just finding new things about how you got here. And
Mhm.
I don't know the story of how either one of you got here. But to, um, to be in this place of recognizing how we've gotten, how humans have gotten in so much trouble, um, is it's such a journey, and the the work that is, Dean has suggested, it's been so astounding, really. Even though I was aware, that we were in trouble, um, starting back when the limits to growth came out in 1971. I studied that, and I particularly like Donella Meadows. She's a
Yeah.
systems analyst who helped with that. And I was really interested in systems analyst analysis, but I never studied it. I could have, I went to school and I wanted to be a biologist. But so I read The Limits to Growth, and thought, well, that looks like we're going to be getting in trouble around 2040. And that's what it predicts.
Yeah.
But I forgot about it. And then there was some poo-poo stuff going on about how that's not right, etc. Um, and so I just kept on going my usual way. But I do love nature, so but yet, um, but now one of the reasons I'm here is to because, well, okay, I got, really knowing that climate change was a problem, and I started to get involved in different groups about climate change. I have an art group, and I wanted to do an art piece about that. But then I did realize and read that about overshoot being the problem, and but I'd never heard of William Catton or Michael Dowd, and they really nailed it, both of them. And in my, it's something I needed because there's a religious part of it, especially in Michael Dowd, about being able to get through the horrible part of realizing what's happening.
Mhm.
Because I've been depressed about this, that, and the other for a long time, but I've worked my way around those things, and I belong to groups which help. Um, but anyway, I don't know how much longer I'll just talk about this, but I'm just really, I'm so happy to have found this way of looking at it, that we have here, which is, I guess it's called post-doom now. And that was, I don't know if Paul Chafurka has that, but there's the awareness of one problem, or the awareness of two problems, or a few
Mhm.
problems, and then the awareness of all of the interaction of all the problems. And then once you realize that, which includes overshoot, which is, the big one,
Mm.
then after that is doom. And so there's the depression right there. So, but we're working on ways to get through to the post-doom part, which the meditation and the practices will help with. So
Mm.
believe me, I've seen it happen. I do my AA practice, which has the Serenity Prayer, and those things work. But the main thing that works is the group of people that you're working with. So that's why I like this, because you know I can talk to my friends, but they don't really want to get into it in this on this level. My partner might want to do it. I'm trying to work with him a little bit, but I mean, he doesn't have to. So anyway, I guess that's all I have to say right now. Hey, how about it, Bob?
Mhm. Thanks, Melissa.
Ah. I don't know how deep to go into this, but I'll just say I got married at 17, and that changed my life. And at the time, I thought it was going to be a negative thing. Taking, from what I had been thinking about and dreaming, but after I can look back through the years, it was a serendipitous thing that got me on a different path, or got me onto the path I was supposed to be on, and that was the only way I could get there. And so I've been a radical ever since, of some sort, at some measure, in just about everything. And it wasn't just to be a radical for the fun of it. It was just I knew something was wrong, something wasn't right. Things didn't feel good. Like I never could get into being a salesman or a capitalist or anything like that. It just didn't fit. I tried it.
Mhm.
It just didn't work.
Yeah.
It just wasn't going to happen. And I even got to the point, and it pushed me towards environmentalism, and I even got to the point um, that I actually started a solar company myself here in Tennessee in the early 90s. Didn't last but about a year. If you try and do something like that in the land of TVA, you got to have more brains than I did, because it didn't work. And but I was going there as part of the green movement, saying if you just do this, do that, do this, do that, it'll all come together eventually. There's enough smart people out there, we'll make it work. Until you get to the point and say, nope, still ain't going to do that. So, and then you come across, the real things, the overshoots, the Michael Dowds, and the unbelievable amount of other people that are aware at different scales on Paul Trafalgar's scale, but even there's a lot of people that are at the last stage of acceptance, and maybe even Melissa's post-nim maybe could be added to that too. So nothing has made sense before that to a deeper level, and that post-noon acceptance has allowed me to feel right with what was going on, with the way things were being presented then, with the information that was there, seeing all the different people in the world that were aware of this and aware of that and aware of this, and trying to come together in much greater capacities than the UN and the IPCCs and all the, 28 cops now, something like that, or 28 cop outs now. So that's why I'm here. But I'm also here at this particular time right now because I want to be able to, the part of me that's lacking, well, there's a lot of me that's lacking. That's the part I think I need to focus on, is the awareness of the beauty behind things. I understand the other parts to it, and I want to take your quote, Dean, from Einstein and change it just a tad, in that instead of thinking, he was talking about mind, and with using the same mind that got you into
Mhm.
the predicament in the first place. And there's different levels of mentality. But my reading of that is that, and Einstein was a spiritual person, is that he understood that you can only go so far with your mind. The human intellect can only take you so far, and that the things that are really true and underlying of everything else have to do with the beauty and the caring and the love and the other things that abound and support the whole system. Um, but I still need to feel that and uh, be able to take that in so that I can express that more than I have been able to in my life so far. So
Yeah.
uh, that's one reason I'm here to see how this is gonna fit.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you both for checking in such a generous way. I want to kind of ride that last few sentences that you were saying, Bob. We recently finished up a round of our book club here in Living Resilience, and that most recent book that we were exploring was Mark Nepo, who's a remarkable poet, but he's also a formidable teacher as well. And boy, it's a long list of kind of the gold nuggets that I remember from that book. But the one that came to mind when you were talking, Bob, was how he suggested to us a number of times to mine for the gold, mine for the sacred in the ordinary, mine the ordinary for the sacred. And I, I'm really struck by the bare bones simplicity of that idea. It's at once the simplest thing that I can imagine. That we have this implicit, this interbeing, this oneness, this expansive feeling of being related to everything awaiting us, this sacred experience awaiting us, even in the simplest of moments. And yet, that simple experience, that profound and simple experience, is best known after hearing the stories of all the wisdom traditions and all those adepts who spent their entire lives on the mountaintop or in the cave or in their meditation, hovel and so on. This is the same territory, and we can either spend an entire lifetime in that kind of ascetic simplicity and that bare bones, dark night of the soul kind of exploration, which is an option and an extraordinary one. And my sense is he was introducing us to much simpler ways that we might try to touch that experience in our daily life. So, yeah, I appreciate that you both kind of gave us a little bit of a sense of how you got into this path and what rattled you enough to have you start to take it on in a serious way. And I'd like to just give the the shortest version I can of some of my story for those who don't know me. My name is Dean Walker. I'm the founder of this little organization and so on. And where I got my orientation, what opened my eyes to what was truly going on, and what would be the outcome if we kept living life this way. My eyes were opened in the mid 70s when I was in my mid teens. And I realized that very few adults and very few children, that I would play with at that time. I had nobody in my life who understood what I was seeing and what I was interpreting from places like there was a guy named Jacques Cousteau who did TV specials on Sunday nights occasionally. And at the end of every one of his specials, he would tell us about the damage that was being done nearby. This beautiful place he'd been showing us. Well, just not too far away, there's some damage going on. And as human beings are extracting fish or extracting from the reef and so on, or pouring in poison, and so like an undersea Rachel Carson, he really had an impact on me. And I noticed that I was really the only person in tears at the end of many of those specials. And I went in search of adults or mentors or teachers who could help me make sense of this. It's an awful lot for a young teenager to try and handle on his own. So I found some sort of traditional voices, some elders who could offer me some mentoring, some education about what I now call the self-terminating nature of our society, of our global culture. And there was also a long period that really became a major part of my practices in my young adulthood, was to do quite a bit of plant medicine in a very sacred way, and to then guide others in that kind of plant medicine journey for years and years. And there were also some very potent voices or mentoring, if you will, from non-corporeal mentors, meaning they weren't in a body. And the consistent message, whether it was somebody in a body or somebody without a body, the consistent message was, this is where you're headed. That where the global culture is headed is, there's nothing to save here. It's going to go down. And so go and do what you do, make your way in the world and so on, but just know that this is far larger than anybody is able to do, either alone or even as groups of various sizes. And sure enough, after living a full adult life on a remarkable career and so on, I got my cage rattled back about roughly a dozen years ago. That started me on the progression of realizing this is really happening. And I always knew it was going to happen, but I had it on a timeline of about 2100. What I got my cage rattled about was abrupt climate change. That was the topic that I heard someone speak about. And that completely disoriented me, because it was implying that all these things are indeed going to happen, but they're going to happen within my old guy lifetime. So it took me off the corporate track and completely revamped me to write the book that I wrote and create this body of work and so on. And so I could say that I've been collapse acceptant since my early teenage years, but it kind of faded and then came home with a smack upside the head to wake me up to how much more urgent and intense and accelerated that this collapse would actually be. So that's my little bit of history, my little bit of context. And for those who are watching this recording, I would like to request of you to use a part of your journaling and or your prompts for yourself in conversation with others to share your story. What woke you up to what's actually going on? And what have been some of the major steps along the way that have deepened your understanding of what's going on and what's the human impact on the planet and on each other? So, as we had uh, on Saturday, um, these first group practice sessions of the 6 weeks of course material. This week it will be the shortest of these group practice sessions because we really don't have an embodied practice yet at this opening level, particularly of Paul Chafurka's stages of awareness. We're still hovering in that business as usual level. And I've thrown in a couple of very challenging elements if you're new to this conversation by throwing in right away Michael Dowd's presentation to the Canadian Club of Rome organization. His remarkably clear presentation about the inevitability of collapse and his strong admonition to consider full acceptance of collapse. So I consider this check-in that we've each shared from our lives and a little bit of that formulation of how these really daunting realizations showed up for each of us. And a strong suggestion for you again to carry a journal with you, engage with that journal with each of the pieces that you'll encounter of the curriculum of the course. And we start out kind of slow with the Collateral Beauty, with the beauty part this week. They're nice songs. They're kind of quieter and they're not really built for singing along yet. And I would recommend highly that you consider as the weeks go by to sing along with some of these songs. I'm very happy to say that I've included some of the better songs from a group called Choir from Canada, and some of their just brilliant sing-along songs. You know, they have a flash mob style of bringing together people in a warehouse somewhere, and they just start singing a song that most likely we all know. And there's a reason why we put the beauty into Collateral Beauty. And there's a reason why we're including an embodied practice each week. So I hope you'll really give those elements a chance. Really take it on to sing along once in a while. And also to engage with the practices, even if you may have done them before, to engage with them newly. And most of all, I would like to thank us all. Thank you, especially Melissa and Bob, for showing up today and being a part of our section 1 of the Tuesday gatherings. And all you folks who are coming on to watch these recordings, thank you for engaging with this work. I think you're going to see that this is pretty unique work as the weeks go on. I'm going to be inviting you to do some pretty deep introspection and also to do some possibly quite intimate conversations with the folks that are right for you, that you might have in your life, folks that you could trust to hold space for you, and perhaps you could offer them the similar prompts. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Those are practices for later weeks. Um, I'm wondering, Melissa and Bob, could you suggest anything? Could you just have anything before we sign off as a suggestion for folks who might be brand new to this exploration, to this kind of coursework? Um, is there anything you could offer and that might help them or help them understand or help them get through some of the more challenging material? Anything that you have found that you call on, like an inner resource? I think, Melissa, you're muted.
I'm muted. Okay. I like very much that we each talked about how we got here. And for somebody who's new, I think that's a good resource to maybe put in your journal, the things that happened to you in sort of the order they happened. I'm going to do that. It doesn't have to be a long explanation, but
Mm,
I think that is a good way to start, to look at this as a journey because we're
yeah.
still on it. And so the deeper meditations and beautiful things in the course can be part of that maybe we can read them back at some point or part of that to each other. That would be one thing.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Um, I'd like to tell anybody that's new that if you're here, it's because you're supposed to be.
Mm,
Uh, things are not as random as you think they are. You have a path and you've been guided here
mm,
through whatever means. And if you're new, then you're somewhere along the awareness continuum that Walter Furka has. If you're new and you're already acceptance, you've been thinking about it for a while. Because acceptance is just that you understand everything before that is built up to that, and then you accept that. And what Michael Dowd was telling the Canadian Club of Rome in his uh, prophetic talk back then uh, was to trust that this is what is supposed to be happening, that trust that there is something behind that's greater than what we're aware of, that is the power behind things, and trust that that power is what guided you here in the first place, even though you don't understand it necessarily or aren't very far along on the awareness continuum. Um, just trust yourself and trust others. Trust people in a day and age when it's hard to trust people in the first place.
mhm.
There, it's okay to be vulnerable to this kind of thing because there's people out there that want to help and want to guide and want to provide information to you so that you can make up your own mind and own decision. Um, this is one of the platforms for doing that, and there are lots of platforms
Mm,
in that arena out there. And just remember to trust that you're here to find what's right for you and what's right your path is. And as part of what, not necessarily that this course is going to be the coup de grace, so to speak. It might be, hopefully, that'd be cool. But if not, it's just going to be one aspect of your uh, evolutionary push towards a higher knowledge. It's kind of knowledge that Einstein was talking about that we need to have in order to see past what has been going on here. So that's what I would say to some kind of new folks.
All right. Thank you. Thank you both. This wraps it up for the very first of 6 weeks of Tuesday, late afternoon, early evening group practice gatherings for this Collateral Beauty course, which we're doing live in the springtime, the roaring springtime of 2024. And our hats are off to you folks who are watching this kind of material for the first time and watching the recordings of these group gatherings. We hope to meet you in person at some point. And we'll look forward to seeing you either next Saturday and or next Tuesday for session 2 of both of those group practice meetings. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Bob.
Welcome to another recorded live event supporting our most recent Living Resilience introductory course, Collateral Beauty. This course, designed to challenge and resource both newcomers and the very experienced in the Collapse-Aware and Collapse-Acceptant communities. Each recording in this series is from either the Saturday or Tuesday online Zoom gatherings intended to deepen an embodied and shared experience of this inner work of collapse in the course called Collateral Beauty.